Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
I'm Edward, 52, and my wife Vanessa is 42. We never had kids, not by choice, just one of those things life throws at you. But honestly, we've made peace with it over our 15 years of marriage and found our own kind of happiness. Instead of focusing on what we couldn't have, we threw ourselves into traveling and caring for our pets. Vanessa's always been this bundle of energy, planning trips all over the States. Every weekend it's a new resort, and during vacation time, we even jet off overseas. I used to worry we were traveling too much, but Vanessa's enthusiasm made me love traveling too. These days, coming home from work, I'm greeted by our cat Luna's welcoming meow and Vanessa's warm smile in the living room. We've fallen into a comfortable routine: dinner together, watching TV, cuddling with the cat. But there's this one thing about our marriage that stands out: our intimate life. While I'd say I'm doing okay for my age, Vanessa's in a whole different league. Even after 15 years, she's still as passionate as ever, often making moves when I'm completely exhausted and trying to rain check. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but some workdays leave me completely drained. When she whispers that sweet, "Honey, how about tonight?" all I can manage is a weak, "Sorry, not tonight," through half-closed eyes. She used to just smile and say, "Maybe tomorrow?" But lately, with age catching up to me, even managing once every few days is becoming a challenge, sometimes stretching to once a week. Man, that weighs on me. I can see the disappointment in Vanessa's eyes, even though she tries to hide it, and it kills me inside. The frustration of not being able to keep up with my wife's needs, it's rough. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, I used to be so much better at this. Back in my 30s, even though she wore me out, I could still hang in there. During our honeymoon phase, daily intimacy was our normal. But hitting 50 changed things. Now I often find my mind is willing, but my body can't keep up, as they say. I've thought about seeing a doctor, but kept putting it off, making excuses about work and telling myself it wasn't that bad. Let's face it, bedroom issues aren't exactly a casual conversation topic. Sure, I can crack jokes with my buddies over beers about getting old, but having a real heart-to-heart about satisfying your wife? That's a whole different ballgame. Meanwhile, Vanessa hasn't slowed down one bit. If anything, she seems more passionate than ever. She's still playful and flirty at bedtime, trying to be understanding when I can't respond, but I can see the letdown in her eyes when she says, "Okay." I knew I had to do something, so I started Googling stuff like how to improve your love life and dealing with low energy as you age. Among all the usual advice about vitamins and exercise, one word jumped out at me: swinging. At first, I thought no way, even in America, that seemed pretty out there, and definitely way outside my comfort zone. But somehow, that idea stuck with me. It wasn't that I wasn't curious. While I couldn't picture myself getting involved with someone else, the thought of Vanessa with another man, it stirred something in me, mixing with this strange jealousy. Maybe I'd like to watch. That thought hit me out of nowhere. The fantasy got under my skin like a drug, and some nights I'd lie there in the dark, listening to Vanessa's steady breathing, staring at the ceiling, just thinking, how would I feel seeing Vanessa with someone else? Jealous? Angry? Turned on? The more I soul-searched, the more I realized I might be the type to feel both intense jealousy and an unexpected thrill from it all. Sure, I wondered if these thoughts made me weird, but I figured I couldn't be the only one who'd ever felt this way. I couldn't stop imagining what Vanessa's expression would be like in such a situation. Truth be told, I had zero interest or energy for being with another woman. It just wasn't something I could even picture, physically or emotionally. But thinking about Vanessa with someone else ignited something within me, awakening feelings I hadn't expected. The surge of energy that came with these thoughts caught me off guard. Maybe this kind of excitement was exactly what I needed. While part of me thought it should stay in the realm of fantasy, I found myself seriously considering if there might be someone trustworthy out there. Just as I was trying to push these thoughts away, life had something unexpected in store. Joseph was my colleague at work, probably in his early 30s. Everyone respected him for being a quick study and a hard worker. He'd recently transferred from our New York headquarters to our branch office for a new project. One day, he came to me asking, "Ed, could I ask your advice about something?" He opened up about feeling isolated in his new surroundings, with no friends or social connections. "All my friends are back home, and I barely know anyone here," he confided. I gave him the usual advice: grab drinks with other transplants, try finding hobby groups online. But Joseph just looked more dejected. "I don't even have a girlfriend," he admitted. "Between work and home, there's no time to meet anyone. Having a girlfriend would be nice, but it seems complicated. I'd settle for just one good date," he said with a self-deprecating laugh. When he said that, this crazy idea that had been lurking in my subconscious suddenly clicked into place. Sharing my wife, normally, I'd dismiss such a wild thought immediately. But something about this situation felt right. Maybe this could work out for everyone. Joseph wouldn't be so lonely, and Vanessa, well, before I could think it through, I found myself blurting out, "Actually, I've got my own situation. My wife has a really high sex drive. Honestly, I can't keep up anymore. If you're interested, maybe you and my wife could." My voice shook as I spoke. My heart was racing, and I was terrified of his reaction. What if he thought I was some kind of pervert and spread rumors around the office? But to my surprise, Joseph's eyes went wide, and his expression turned serious. His voice was a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Are you being serious right now?" he asked cautiously. "Yeah," I sighed. "I know it sounds crazy, but I mean it." Joseph's face flushed red. "But Ed, your wife is gorgeous. I wouldn't be good enough. And would she even be okay with this?" My chest tightened. I hadn't mentioned any of this to Vanessa yet. All I could say was a vague maybe. Would she ever go for such an out there suggestion? But I couldn't think rationally anymore. "Well, if she agrees when we talk, you're lonely too, so think of it as helping each other out," I said, my voice unsteady. "To be honest, I want to watch." Joseph paused for a moment, deep in thought, then gave a slight smile. Something in his eyes had shifted. "You're something else, Ed. But I've got to admit, I'm intrigued. It has been a while since I've been with anyone." My heart skipped a beat at his unexpected openness. While it wasn't a definite yes, I could see he was considering it. The next evening, I finally worked up the courage to talk to Vanessa. As night fell, I found her in the living room. "Honey, can I run something kind of wild by you?" My voice was shaking. "What's up?" Vanessa looked at me with those trusting eyes. Seeing that innocent look, guilt hit me like a wave. Even though I was sure she'd flip out, something inside me had passed the point of no return. Whatever happened, I had to try. Taking a deep breath, I spoke as calmly as I could. "I want to make you happy, Vanessa. But lately, with age catching up to me, I've been struggling physically." When I mentioned the possibility of another man, Vanessa's eyes widened in surprise. "What?" Her reaction was exactly what you'd expect. "Listen, honey, I love you more than anything. But these days, I just can't keep up with your needs. So I was thinking, maybe just once, with someone else?" Vanessa's face cycled through shock and confusion. Totally understandable. Most wives would have shut this down immediately with a, "Have you lost your mind?" Instead, her eyes welling up, she asked, "Edward, do you not want me anymore?" Seeing her about to cry, my heart sank. "God, no, that's not it at all. I love being with you. I just feel terrible that I can't keep up. I don't want you to hold back because of me." Then, barely above a whisper, I added, "And maybe watching would spark something in me." After I laid it all out, silence filled the room. Vanessa pulled her knees to her chest on the sofa, blinking rapidly. Finally, She spoke softly. This is so weird, Edward. You getting turned on by watching me with someone else? I don't get it, but if that's what you want. Actually, I have been feeling a bit frustrated lately. Does that make me a bad person? To my complete surprise, she hadn't immediately shot down the idea. While she didn't fully understand it, she wasn't totally against it either. That tiny opening gave me the courage to continue. Actually, my colleague Joseph, who just transferred from corporate, has been pretty lonely here. No friends, no girlfriend. I think he might be good for you. Vanessa's eyes got even wider. Joseph? That young guy? To do something like this? But I pressed on. He mentioned he's been single for a while, and he seemed interested. No pressure, though, only if you're comfortable with it. Vanessa let out a soft sigh. Really? Me with another man? Won't that hurt you, Edward? Yeah, it probably will. I'll definitely feel jealous. But something about imagining it gets me excited. We both fell silent, neither knowing quite what to say. But in that silence, I could feel a mix of nervous energy and curiosity between us. Finally, Vanessa gave a small smile and whispered, I'm scared, but if it's for us, I'll try. And just like that, we entered this unusual arrangement. Over the next few days, I texted back and forth with Joseph to figure out the details. At first, he was hesitant. Are you serious? He asked, but eventually agreed to go through with it. We settled on Saturday night. He'd come over. We'd have some drinks to break the ice, and I'd watch from the corner of the living room couch while giving them space. Looking back, it was pretty wild. But Vanessa didn't want to overthink it and stress herself out, so she just laid down some basic ground rules, like being able to say no, not being pressured, and stopping immediately if she felt uncomfortable. I knew this wasn't normal. Most couples would never even consider it. But I couldn't shake this nervous excitement in my chest. This is really happening. Vanessa with another man? Just thinking about it made my pulse race. Even though it felt taboo, my whole body was buzzing with anticipation. At 8 p.m. sharp, Joseph showed up. I had the living room ready with wine and cheese. Vanessa had just gotten out of the shower and was dressed to impress in her favorite dress. Most people would just see it as elegant, but I knew better. It was her special occasion dress. Hey, thanks for having me, Joseph said as he walked in, looking nervous. He smiled sheepishly and asked, You guys sure about this? I gestured to the couch and said, Have a seat, then quickly poured some wine and proposed a toast. I definitely needed some alcohol to calm my nerves. Though Vanessa was shy at first, as the wine flowed, she started to relax and was soon chatting and laughing with Joseph like old friends. I sat quietly, watching them make small talk about their weekends and Joseph's bachelor life, occasionally chiming in. My head was spinning a bit. After about an hour, I caught Vanessa giving Joseph this subtle look. When I saw it, I thought, here we go. I was about to witness my wife seducing someone else. Then Joseph, now visibly more relaxed, gently took Vanessa's hand. I set down my half-finished wine and sank deeper into the couch, bracing myself for what was about to happen. Edward, you sure you're okay with this? Joseph turned to me awkwardly. I nodded slowly. Yeah, don't worry about it. Vanessa glanced my way, flashed a slight smile, then leaned into Joseph. From that moment on, it was like watching a movie in slow motion. They started tentatively, but things gradually heated up. As I watched them together, intense jealousy coursed through me, but strangely enough, the excitement was even stronger. If I listened closely, I could hear soft sighs and sounds, mixed with Vanessa's sweet voice. I just sat there, my heart thundering in my chest. Eventually, they stood up and moved closer to where I was sitting. Every touch between them, Joseph's hands on Vanessa, her fingers on him, sparked emotions I'd never experienced before. They kissed and pressed against each other, their bodies intertwining. Joseph's hands found their way around Vanessa's waist, and her lips traced down his neck. I couldn't take my eyes off them, not wanting to miss a single moment. My heart was racing, and I found myself breathless watching their passionate display. Their hands explored each other's bodies with growing intensity. Joseph's fingers traced down Vanessa's back while she buried her face in his chest. I watched their every move, completely transfixed. Their breathing grew heavier, and the room seemed to get hotter by the minute. They discovered each other's most intimate places, their passion building with each touch. The room filled with soft moans and sighs. I couldn't look away, overwhelmed by the complex emotions surging through me. They moved as one, their rhythm growing more intense as the heat between them built. When I finally came back to my senses, I realized I'd been completely lost in the moment. My mind was foggy, but these feelings were unlike anything I'd known before. Watching Vanessa with someone else, showing the same kind of love she shows me, the more I thought about it, the more it took my breath away. I couldn't calm down, but I couldn't tear my eyes away either. I just sat there frozen on the couch, taking it all in. The jealousy was like a knife in my chest, but it mixed with this primal excitement I couldn't explain. What really threw me was how these completely opposite feelings could exist together. But what hit me hardest was Vanessa's expression. Sure, I knew what she looked like when she was happy with me, but this was different. It was something I'd never seen before, an expression of ecstasy I'd never seen before. When I saw that, it shook me to my core. Part of me couldn't help but wonder with a twinge of bitterness, can I not make her look like that anymore? After they finished, Vanessa lay there catching her breath, while Joseph wore this look that was both apologetic and satisfied. I sat quietly, still unable to take my eyes off them, barely able to speak. My heart was racing as the reality of what had just happened sank in. After a while, Joseph stood up and said, "Sorry, would it be okay if I shower first?" I just nodded silently. Vanessa glanced my way before quickly looking down, clearly flustered. Seeing her like that suddenly filled me with tenderness. "Vanessa?" When I called out to her, she answered softly, "Yes. You doing okay?" Vanessa gave a small smile and said, "Yeah, but honestly, this turned into something pretty intense," as she lowered her eyes. Her cheeks were still flushed, and I could feel the charged atmosphere lingering in the room. I was torn between jealousy and tenderness, but there was also this growing heat inside me. "Vanessa?" I called her name again and pulled her into my arms, just as she was. Vanessa seemed startled for a moment, but then wrapped her arms around me. I was overwhelmed with desire. The jealousy was overwhelming. I felt hurt. But right then, I wanted her more than anything. These feelings were exploding inside me. While Joseph was in the shower, I couldn't help myself. I had to have her. Even though it was right after, I was consumed by a passion I hadn't felt in years. It was like a fire of possession and anger, as if I needed to reconnect with her. Though Vanessa was surprised, she matched my intensity. Afterward, we told Joseph thanks, that's all for tonight, and sent him home, then stayed in bed until the early hours. That night, I made love to Vanessa again and again, and she was just as passionate. Surprisingly, it felt like the start of something new between us. The next morning, Vanessa was in the kitchen making breakfast. Still a bit groggy, I came down to the living room, and she turned to look at me. Her eyes had that same warmth they always did. "Edward, good morning. Breakfast is ready." "Yeah, morning." While I was unsure how to process last night's events, Vanessa seemed perfectly at ease, or at least she was keeping up her usual routine. During breakfast, there was this uncomfortable silence every time we looked at each other. Vanessa nervously bit her lip before carefully asking, "Edward, what did you think about everything? Do you regret it?" I put down my coffee cup and thought for a moment. To be honest, I've got mixed feelings about it. But no, I don't regret it. Vanessa's eyes got misty as she spoke, her voice shaking. "You know, I was terrified, and my heart was breaking. I felt so guilty towards you. But," she stopped, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "But when you held me at the end, I was just so happy. If this brought us closer together, then yes, I think it was worth it. When I saw her genuine smile, it melted my heart. All I could manage was a thank you, but I could feel this emptiness inside me starting to fill up. My love for Vanessa was coming back stronger than ever. At work, driving around, scenes from last night kept playing in my head. Those moments when jealousy felt like it would tear me apart, the intense passion that came afterward, and all those overwhelming emotions. Even now, just thinking about it sends shivers down my spine and makes my heart pound. Who knew I could feel things this intensely? I was shocked at my own reactions. I couldn't help but crack a wry smile at discovering this new side of myself, but there was no denying how real it felt. The next day, running into Joseph in the break room was extremely uncomfortable. We both tried to avoid eye contact, managing only uncomfortable smiles. Finally, Joseph worked up the courage to speak first, his voice barely above a whisper. "Edward," he continued, fidgeting with his coffee cup. Um, I really appreciate what happened. This was all new territory for me, so I'm not even sure how to act." I felt this tension in my chest as I replied, "Yeah, same here." But the words came out hesitantly. "What did you think about Vanessa?" Joseph's face turned bright red. He looked up at the ceiling, taking a deep breath. "Honestly, your wife was incredible and captivating. Way out of my league." His voice was sincere, but then his expression turned sad. "Though when I saw how gentle you were with her afterward, it hit me. This is what real love looks like." And that kind of stung. I struggled to find the right words, biting my lip. The loneliness in Joseph's eyes was obvious. It was clear he knew he'd always be on the outside looking in. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. After a pause, I added, "But you really did help us. Because of this, I've fallen in love with Vanessa all over again." Joseph gave a sad smile and shook his head. "No," he said, his voice unsteady. "I was just so lonely after moving here and being with such an amazing woman." He trailed off, glancing up. I don't know how to put it, but it meant something to me. Another awkward silence fell between us. Looking at the loneliness in Joseph's eyes, I felt guilty about dragging my coworker into such a complicated situation. But I could tell from how genuine he sounded that he'd found his own meaning in it too. I just sat there playing with my coffee cup, trying to process all these complicated feelings. A week later, married life with Vanessa was better than ever. It felt like we were newlyweds again. She'd greet me with this gorgeous smile when I got home, saying, "Welcome back," and asking, "How was your day?" with real interest. I'd answer with a confidence I hadn't felt in ages, "It was good." Both Vanessa and I were thrilled that things had gotten so much better in the bedroom, and I was amazed at my newfound energy. Maybe all that jealousy and possessiveness had been sleeping inside me? Was that what kicked things into high gear? It's weird to say, but even now, thinking about that night gets me all fired up. One night, after we'd made love, Vanessa suddenly spoke up. In the darkness, Vanessa whispered shakily, "Hey, Edward." Her eyes were full of uncertainty. About that night, I know it wasn't right. But she hesitated, biting her lip. It made me happy in a way, to feel like I was still desirable. Her cheeks turned pink. "Sorry for saying that." Her confession hit me right in the heart. All these complicated feelings of guilt and love welled up inside me. "No, I get it," I said, squeezing her hand. "That night made me fall deeply in love with you all over again. The jealousy, the possessiveness, the passion, it all brought us closer." I took a breath before adding, "So I don't regret it either. Maybe it was exactly the shake-up we needed." Vanessa relaxed into a smile and snuggled against my arm. I could feel her warm breath against my skin. It felt like we'd reached this new level of understanding. I couldn't tell her what I was really thinking, though. That deep down, I was wondering if we should give Joseph another call. That maybe one more time could bring out even stronger feelings. But something told me that going further down this road might damage what we had. These thoughts kept circling in my mind more and more. Then one day, Joseph showed up at my desk. With other people around, he kept his voice low. "Edward, thanks again for everything. Actually, I've been thinking, I'd like to see Vanessa again." My breath caught in my throat. I knew exactly what kind of seeing he meant. To be honest, part of me was tempted by the idea. I found myself wondering, could I experience those intense emotions again? But I frowned with concern as a nagging thought hit me. Going down this road repeatedly could be risky. Since the office wasn't the place for such a delicate conversation, I exhaled deeply and said, "Let's discuss this over the phone tonight." I knew I needed to talk this through with Vanessa at home. Later that evening, as Vanessa sat in the living room stroking our cat Luna's fur, I cleared my throat carefully and spoke up. "Joseph wants to meet again." Without looking up from the cat, Vanessa responded with a measured, "Oh?" I felt both excited and nervous as I asked, "What do you think we should do?" Though Vanessa maintained a composed exterior, I caught a flicker of uncertainty in her warm brown eyes. I felt equally torn. The thought that another encounter might add some spark to our relationship battled with the worry of, what if this becomes something we can't control? A knot formed in my chest, as if our precious bond might somehow slip away. After a thoughtful pause, Vanessa continued petting Luna and softly admitted, "You know, I don't think what happened was necessarily bad for us." My pulse quickened at her candid response. I reached out to Joseph right away. He eagerly suggested, "Why don't you both come over to my place this time? I'll take care of dinner." That weekend found us at his apartment, hearts racing with a mix of anticipation and nerves. His studio apartment was somewhat messy, with the bed immediately visible from the entrance. The setup made me tense, but there was no avoiding it. Joseph ordered pizza, and we shared a meal and some drinks together. But the casual atmosphere didn't last long before things progressed. This time, everything happened right there on his bed. Maybe because it was round two, Joseph showed more confidence, less hesitation. Those familiar feelings surged through me again. Perhaps because Vanessa and I had been more intimate lately, I felt an even stronger sense of possessiveness. I must have looked intense because Joseph actually paused to ask, "You doing all right?" When I remained focused and distant, he seemed to get more charged up, becoming more passionate with Vanessa while watching my reactions. Of course, once we got home, I couldn't keep my hands off Vanessa. It was like every emotion inside me exploded at once. Joseph extended more invitations after that, but Vanessa and I agreed that getting too involved could jeopardize our marriage. I called him and explained that while we appreciated everything, we felt it was best to leave things as they were. Though his "I understand" carried a note of disappointment, he didn't push the issue. We settled back into our normal routine after that. Vanessa and I have been more physically intimate than ever, and our emotional connection has deepened too. That experience helped me discover parts of myself I never knew existed and gave me a fresh perspective on my love for Vanessa. That's something I can't deny. I've also found a new sense of freedom in expressing myself. Joseph still messages occasionally with things like, "Still pretty lonely out here." I respond when I feel like it, but keep my distance. While we're not trying to pretend those encounters never happened, something holds us back from exploring that chapter of our lives too deeply. I've definitely learned that married couples have unique dynamics and desires that only they can truly understand. These days, just seeing Vanessa's radiant smile fills me with joy. Sure, memories from those nights still pop into my head sometimes, but I know without a doubt that the woman in my arms is my wife and my soulmate. I want to keep cherishing her and building our life together. I know there might be times ahead when I worry about keeping up with Vanessa physically or maintaining my stamina.